I just bought this Sony 20mm f1.8. It just got here, so I'm using it to film this. Probably a little unnecessary because it's super wide. Well, actually, there's not like a ton of distortion. Probably too wide for this. Is it? I don't know. It looks small sitting here. I think it looks cool. We're gonna keep it. Today's video is sponsored by Storybox. A couple weeks ago, I shot a commercial starring my dog, the beautiful Sansa. She's just outside the door. It gets really hot in this room, so she doesn't hang out in here while I film anymore, unfortunately. I posted the finished commercial a couple days ago, and what I want to do today is break down that video scene by scene and kind of show you my thought process and how it matched up from what I storyboarded out in the pre-production to what it actually ended up being, which surprisingly was probably the closest I've ever gotten a finished product to the storyboard in pre-production. Now, this commercial that I shot for my dog is not a masterclass in cinematography. It's not the most epic video that you've ever seen, but it's really just a great example of what you're able to create with the resources around you for a commercial or a brand video. If you didn't see the video when I posted it earlier, let's watch it together. It'll be a fun little treat. It's only 41 seconds.
In this Pacific forest, spring is just around the corner. And after another long winter, this fox-red Labrador Retriever hasn't tasted food in over 6 hours. And she is very, very hungry. She uses what she has adopted from over 10,000 years of evolution to get herself a handful of nutritious treats. Made from the wild, to protect the wild, to fuel the not so wild anymore.
All right, so let's just go through this frame by frame here. So opening up here, we have this gorgeous shot of the West Maui Mountains. I live on Maui, so this is like the most mountainy that we're gonna get. It looks like a scene out of Jurassic Park. Got really beautiful greens here. We got the sun coming in from this direction, casting these nice shadows that are creating depth. You might think that this is a drone shot. It's not. I went on a helicopter ride, doors off, with my girlfriend and my dad like a couple days ago, and I ended up bringing my Sony FX3 on the ride, and I got a couple clips. It was super tough to film because the chopper was really shaky, but I ended up getting some cool shots, and this is one of them, and it made for a great opening in this video. And the next shot is really establishing where our character is going to appear for the first time. We're showing the river. This is a drone shot from the DJI Mavic 2. My production assistant who was helping me out on the shoot, Tyler Bishop, he had the drone with him, and he was so kind to help me out in getting a couple drone shots. Then it goes right from this to a closer shot into the river, flowing over the rocks in slow motion. And the water is flowing from left to right in the previous shot. Let me just back it up. And then it flows from left to right in our new shot. And then for the first time, we're seeing our main character, this wild animal that is Sansa. So what I wanted to do in the first couple shots showing our character is not like give away who she is right away. I wanted to kind of make it ambiguous, if you will, showing her paw, showing a little bit of her face, going to the next clip where Sansa just on her own freestyles, drinks the water, and it looks like she's smacking her lips as she's preparing for a nice meal. But again, super tight, shows the features of the animal, but it doesn't reveal Sansa in her entirety. And then that goes into this shot where it goes from a little blurry and reveals her. This is like our character reveal, if you will. We got some nice water in the foreground here, creating depth. Just a beautiful, hilarious frame. First time I saw this, when I got back to my computer and I popped in the footage, I couldn't stop laughing because my dog is hilarious, obviously. Also, this is a good scene to mention. I added a little bit of grain just throughout the entire video in the color. So you'll see up in here a little bit of grain. It just adds a little bit of texture to the video. The Sony is very clean, the clean image coming out of there. The lens is very clean. So it just, I don't know, adds a nice little touch to it. I'm sure on the YouTube compression, you can't see it because you know, why would YouTube like help with good quality uploads? Hopping out of this and just looking over what I storyboarded out in pre-production, we're pretty spot on so far with what I wanted. I wanted to open with a nice landscape here, start to establish who our character is with some ambiguous traits like this grizzly bear from an actual episode of Planet Earth where David Attenborough is doing the voiceover. I really like the idea of comparing Sansa to a bear because she really is just like a tiny grizzly bear in stature. She's a thick girl. Pretty spot on with how I storyboarded this out so far. And it'll continue to go that way. It's funny because I forgot to mention like the greatest part of this video so far. I really wanted to have a Planet Earth feel, like the show Planet Earth by Sir David Attenborough. So to replicate that, I really wanted a voiceover that sounded just like Sir David Attenborough. So I went on Google, quick search, David Attenborough voiceover impersonation. And on Fiverr, there you have it, a ton of people who do David Attenborough impersonations for, you know, TV, videos, whatever, you name it. So this guy, the voiceover guy on Fiverr, did an incredible job. I sent him over a rough copy of the video with my horrible David Attenborough impersonation over top, which was honestly slightly offensive. It was so bad. But I wanted to give the voiceover artist a good idea of the tone, the pacing, the style that I wanted him to read it in. I sent it over to him. He recorded it, did a flawless job first time around, plugged it into my video, and it fit perfectly. So couldn't have asked for a more professional voiceover guy than the voiceover_ guy. I needed to transition her out of the river because she was going to go on that deer chase, and the deer obviously wasn't in the river, so I didn't want her starting in the river. So, you know, just a shot of her on a 200mm lens, compressed with grass in the foreground. Got some ambient foliage sounds of her rustling through the grass, some sounds of a dog sniffing that I pulled. Here we arrive at this scene with a deer in the distance, almost like you're looking through Sansa's eyes. It's just silhouetted, almost like how a dog would see its prey, or a wolf, or whatever Sansa is. It's up to interpretation. So this clip is actually the only clip that I did not shoot. This is a stock footage clip, which leads me into today's video sponsor, which is Storyblocks. So if we come into my storyboard here, you see that I wanted a shot of a deer in the woods that Sansa would turn around and see the deer. Obviously, I didn't have the time to sit out there for an extended amount of time, especially with Sansa, waiting for a deer to just appear for a perfect shot. Like, I'm not a hunter, I'm not a tracker, like I don't know where deer are. Lucky enough for me, Storyblocks had an incredible selection of shots of deer standing in the woods. Because Storyblocks has unlimited downloads through their unlimited all access plan, I was able to just download a ton of different clips of deer standing in the woods and plugging them into my Premiere timeline to see which one would work best for the footage. And this one ended up being the absolute perfect match that I was looking for. It's so convenient to have a tool like Storyblocks where you're able to pull high quality footage without having to worry about royalty frees. You're able to download as much as you want. Such a great place to grab stock footage, audio files, sound effects, After Effects templates, whatever you need. Check out Storyblocks. Go ahead and just click the link in my description below. Make sure you thank Storyblocks too for sponsoring this video and being a great tool for all of us filmmakers. Moving on in our video, Sansa spots this deer. We show a shot of her nose going, her teeth, her fangs, showing how vicious Sansa can really be. And she hunts down this wild chase. I'm on a gimbal running through super uneven surfaces trying to track Sansa, while Tyler, my production assistant, has a tree calling for Sansa, getting her to run. I always make sure I get little clips of just fast-paced trees going by, water going by, just in case I ever have a scene like this. I need, you know, cool little transition clips, which this worked perfect for. Sansa emerging from a tree in the foreground with a 200mm lens. Slow motion of water splashing, just all these chaotic elements adding to the effect of this chase. More, you know, grass flying in the foreground. 60 frames per second, Sansa coming over the crest of a hill. So I originally wanted to shoot this in 120, but I don't have the Sony Tough cards or the V90 cards that make it possible to shoot 4K 120 on the FX3. So I was shooting the 1080 120. It was looking a little muddy, to be honest. I wasn't liking it. So we shot 60 frames just in case, and I'm happy we did because it worked out. You know, the lead into this is speed ramps, slowed up, then it goes back to quickness. And then it goes to another chaotic scene of Sansa in the woods. That's just me handheld, just tracking Sansa as she runs along. In these scenes, I shot at 30 frames per second versus traditional 24. Because when you put that 30 frames per second clip in the 24 timeline, it's going to be a little shakier, a little more chaotic, a little more energy to it. Then this clip kind of looks like a drone shot, but it's just me holding the gimbal as high as I possibly can, pointing down, having Sansa run underneath me to grab a treat. Then you see Sansa running off screen to the left, and then you hear a whistle, and you see Sansa appear coming in from the right, going left into this scene. And this is kind of, you know, the parody of it all. You know, the dog is obviously no longer wild anymore, even though we want to unleash her wild side with the treats themselves. Sansa sits. She uses what she's learned from over 10,000 years of evolution, which is to sit and beg to get a handful of delicious snacks. So just genius writing, if I have to say so myself. I wonder who wrote it. If you notice, most of the footage prior is very cool in temperature, very dark, because I wanted to feel intense. I wanted to feel, you know, like she's this wild grizzly bear in like Alaska almost. Then when we cut into our parody, our happier scenes, not only is the music less intense, but also if you'll notice that there's more saturation, it's brighter, it's warmer. Transition from those chaotic war drums to it's like a vintage country song almost. All these songs were picked out in pre-production. This was all in here prior to actually shooting. This is how we're gonna finish with the vintage country. We had the ambient intro music. I think I ended up using this one. Nope, definitely not that one. We just finished going through the actual video before we start going back into the storyboard. Sun's back here, backlighting this whole scene, which is why we're getting so much depth. You know, we're getting alternating patterns of light and dark between the shadows of the trees. We have a nice little edge light on us, just kind of outlining us. Let me move this. So we're standing out pretty well. I positioned us so that Sansa would sit down and her head would kind of be in this middle space here, just to kind of separate the main action from the scene the best that we could. So this actually isn't the shot that I wanted. I wanted to be outside these trees a little more with, you know, all these trees to the right, and there's like this nice sloping hill that leads into the rest of Maui behind us. But unfortunately, there was people parked there for our barbecue. So gotta be on your toes, be able to quickly think of a solution and finding a new spot. And, you know, I think this worked great. Over top. Then ending on the product shot, which I didn't do any additional lighting. This was the natural light available. I kind of tilted the treat bags so the sun was just grazing across them. Me and Sansa out of focus here in the background, taking a treat like a good girl, just to add a little bit of extra, you know, product design, if you will. Just slap Sansa's leash and her harness next to the bench here that was randomly placed on these trees. So it was a perfect spot, not planned. Just give a standing ovation if you can for Sansa right now. She earned it. What a trooper. The only shot that I ended up not getting was, you know, the one of her sitting and begging. Honestly, Sansa was kind of losing focus on me. The sun was going in and out of the clouds. So I ended up just extending the wide, putting the logo over top of it, which I think worked out fine. Again, none of this is perfect, but I think what I have works really well. First time in a long time, maybe ever, that I successfully created a storyboard and was able to stick to it pretty much throughout the entirety of the piece. But I gotta dip out. I'm starting to sweat. You can see the sweat starting to come through my shirt here. Got some really cool videos coming up. For those of you who are longtime viewers, got Noah Guy and Ori coming out to Maui for some music video shoots that will go through the pre-production, the shooting, the actual final products, and you'll get to see the culmination of super cool, creative, fun, resourceful music videos. Right now, I'm scrambling to get the production done, and it's kind of been a nightmare. I hate producing stuff, but gotta do what you gotta do. Let me know if there's anything you saw that you had questions about in the comments below. Thanks as always for watching. Love you.